In this video, we're going to discuss how to know if a parabola opens up, down, left, or right. We have a couple of different ways to write equations for a parabola. One of those ways is with a y equals. If you're looking at a y equals equation, you should envision the y-axis. You could either have a parabola that opens up, in which case y equals positive a times x squared, or you could have a parabola that opens down, in which case y equals negative a times x squared. Notice how the only difference between those two is that the a is positive in this one, just like the positive y-axis goes up, and the a is negative in this one, just like the negative y-axis goes down. You could also have parabolas which have equations that are x equals. So for these, think about the x-axis, which goes left and right. You could have a parabola whose opening is to the right, in which case the equation is x equals positive a times y squared. Or you could have one that opens to the left, where x equals negative a times y squared. Notice again, the only difference between these two is that this one has a positive a value, and the x-axis goes to the right when it's positive, and this one has a negative a value, and the x-axis goes to the left when it's negative. Now, to see which one it is, you have to get the unsquared variable all by itself. In number 1, notice that the unsquared variable x is already by itself. So we know this is an x equals problem, which means it's either going to go to the right or the left, and since it's got a negative a value right here, we know it's going to open to the left. So you write down the word left and you move on. The next example is number 3. We have to get the unsquared variable alone, and the unsquared variable is x. It is not alone. To undo the multiplication that's happening right now, we can divide both sides by negative 8. And when I divide both sides by negative 8, I get x equals negative 1/8 times y squared. The 1 came from the coefficient on the y squared, which is understood to be there. And since it's x equals, we have, again, the x-axis. And since it's a negative, and the x-axis is negative to the left, this one is going to open to the left. So you write down left and you move on. In number 5, we're getting the unsquared variable alone, and the unsquared variable in this problem is y. There are two things that I have to do to get y alone. The first is subtract x squared from both sides, and that gives me negative 2y equals negative x squared. The next thing I have to do is divide both sides by negative 2. And when I do that, I get y equals, this is going to be a negative 1 divided by negative 2, so a positive 1/2 x squared. So since it's y equals, think about the y-axis, and the y-axis is positive when it goes up. And we have a positive a value here. So this parabola is going to open up. That's your answer. And in number 7, the unsquared variable is x. To get x alone, I need to subtract 4y squared from both sides. And I get negative 3x equals negative 4y squared. And then I need to divide both sides by negative 3. So I get x equals positive 4/3 times y squared. Since this is an x equals problem, think about the x-axis, and since the a value is positive, think about where the x-axis is positive. And since it's positive to the right, this parabola opens to the right. So that's how you determine whether a parabola opens up, down, left, or right.